It's been years now that people, friends, intuitives, psychics, anybody that I hang out with tells me there's a new moon or, hey, your chart's in Pisces or you're this or that. And I honestly, with all the research and all the hippies that I hang out with, have no idea what that means. Furthermore, I don't know how to use it to my advantage. Now, the closer I get to it, the more I understand there's something there. I've done my chart online. And it was like reading about my life. It was incredible. So when I talk to clients and they say, hey, there's the moons, the water signs, and Pisces, whatever it is, I don't know what to tell them. So I'm here with a good friend of mine who is a real astrologer, professional, absolute professional astrologer, who's going to tell us what is astrology, what the hell's going on, and how can we use it for our lives. So my good friend is here, Kerry, from Motherstar Astrology. Is that what it's called? Motherstar Astrology or just Motherstar?
Just Motherstar.
Okay, just Motherstar. That's great. So she's here to help us understand all of this and what's going on. Kerry, what is astrology? Like, what's the theory behind it, and how is it useful for us?
Okay, so everything you just said is like so many layers of astrology.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is, that age-old saying of so above as below, right? So there's energy going on around us in the universe in the name of the planets that are circulating the Earth.
Okay.
And we're looking at what are those energetic signatures that they're putting on us, and how do we take on that energetic signature into our physical body when we're born. Now that sounds like a lot of like woo-woo stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's an actual science that says these are the archetypes that you have embodied in this experience based on when you were born, where you were born, and what that chart looks like. Now, you're looking at a natal chart, like when you're looking at that information you heard about yourself and how, wow, this is my life.
Yeah.
That's a natal chart. So that is an imprint or a blueprint of every planet and where they were at the exact moment you were born. And then when people are talking about like new moons and full moons and things that are going on, those are transiting planets. So that's what's happening currently, right? Because it doesn't just stop. The planets are always in movement. So there's kind of different ways to use it.
So when you do a chart reading, you do like your natal chart. So you said that's an archetype that you're fulfilling. So like when I fill out my chart, it was like, where's your birth location, the time of birth, and birthday. Mm-hmm. So that's the three things. And so what is that telling? That's telling where the moon in Pisces with the retrograde.
So at the exact moment, it's saying we're looking at a wheel, right? Mm-hmm. We're looking at a wheel of 12 signs from Aries all the way to Pisces. And we're looking at where each planet is in each sign at that moment. Okay. Because those planets are orbiting through those constellations. Now there's a lot of science behind it, and like what you actually see isn't necessarily what's on the paper based on science and like time and space and all that shit that we don't like have to get into.
Okay.
But it's all about where's the planet in what sign. And then we're looking at the signature pieces of what does that planet mean? What is that planet signature, energetic signature? And then what does it mean to have that planet in that sign? And then how are all those interacting and interfacing within the dynamics of your chart?
So the different location of the planet in what sign is going to affect like the way that we're influenced energetically. So right. What's kind of the spectrum? Like what kind of stuff can that influence? Can it influence us, physical like appearance, or is it because we're talking more emotional stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest emotional piece in your chart is going to be where the moon was. And the moon moves every 2.5 days into a new sign. So everyone's moon is it changes a lot. Whereas if we're looking at your sun sign, everyone born within those 30 days have the same sun sign, right? But within those 30 days, there's a chance of 15 different moon signs. Does that make sense? So the moon is much more personal to you.
Sure.
Really a signature of what your emotional body is like, how you emotionally process, how you absorb the world, like your internal landscape. Whereas the sun sign is like your external identity, your ego, more of how people see you.
Okay.
Rather than like how you're feeling.
So
in
what's in the spectrum of how we emotionally process? So I can't remember mine exactly, but what's some of the drastic differentiation between like a Pisces and a Scorpio or this, or how does that, what's the spectrum there?
right. So one of the foundational pieces of astrology are the elements. So you're looking at, is it a water sign? Is it a fire sign, an air sign, or an earth sign? And that alone tells you a lot.
Okay, can you differentiate between, so the groups of like a Pisces and a Cancer, and that, what do you call those? Your
Your sign.
sign? So
Yeah.
that's your moon sign or sun sign, or that's just your sign?
So there's different signs, as in
Right.
the 12 constellations. And
Okay.
then if it's your moon sign, it's like that planet, the moon, or the luminary of the moon, is in what sign. So you would say, my moon is in Pisces, or my moon is in Cancer, right?
Right. So out of those 12 signs, there's
Mhm.
12 so there's 3 in each group for an element, or right? There's
Right.
4
Yeah.
elements. So in 4, so 12, there's 4 groups, okay?
Uh-huh.
All right. And then what? And so are the groups that have similarities within the each quadrant there? Each.
Yeah, so absolutely. So the basis of astrology, again, it goes back to archetypes, right? And
Mhm.
it's showing you how we all evolve within these archetypes. So each one is representing a different stage or a different way that your lessons will come through, or the way that you perceive life, like your experiences based on these archetypes. Now we all have all 12 because we all have the full natal chart,
Mhm.
but they're maybe heavily reinforced, or there's conflict in one area or another, right? So I say that to say that, like, there are 3, water signs, but they all have different ways of expressing that element based on where they're at in the wheel. So it's very nuanced in understanding the relationship of each of the signs with the one preceding and the one proceeding, the one that is opposite of that, the one that it conflicts with, right? But if we want to get down to the very basics, again, of just the elements, all the elements, all the signs in the same element have similar characteristics, right? So if your moon is in a water sign, it's going to have watery characteristics of being nonverbal, being intuitive, being sensitive, right? Like energetically sensitive.
Yeah.
Um, if you're in a fire sign, it's more that you're extroverted, you get pissed off. There's like this passion, this fire nature about you, right?
Mhm.
And so on. Like, if
Can you
earth.
go over the other two, cuz I feel like that
Yeah,
helps. Yeah.
absolutely. So earth is that you're really slow and steady, you're really pragmatic, you want logic, you want results, like your life is based, whatever planet is in that, or if you're very earth based, you want tangibility, right? You want that, like, earth practicality. And then air is all about connecting through ideas and thoughts and discernment. So it's really about talking things out. It's about communication. It's about being heard. It's also learning how to listen and not be just talking about nothing or talking in circles, right? So think about your internal body being in one of those emotional signs, like, or one of those elements. So it'd be, if your moon's in fire, you might be like, you go from 0 to 100,
Mhm.
right? And that's like your emotional style.
Yeah.
Whereas if your moon's in water, you may just completely retreat and say nothing. And then you can think about, like, how do those two interact, because we're always interfacing in relationship with other people.
What is, so this, when we talk about the prenatal chart, it's kind of like a disposition, right? What is
Mhm.
the factor of the disposition versus the environment? Does the person with a certain disposition, so maybe a certain element or a certain sign, are they gonna find their way to meet that archetype, or is that archetype much more of kind of like their predisposition, and that has to be like activated through their environment, or is it kind of like a predetermined thing?
Yeah, I love what you said, activated, because that is even a terminology that I'll use, or cultivated. There are definitely signature pieces and ways to interpret a chart that say, this is how I see your relationship with your father, or how I see your relationship with this, like, nature versus nurture, right? Like, this is how you are, and this is how nurturing has affected you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can look at the chart and see, like, wow, this part of your chart was really over cultivated. can we look at this part that is a natural innate thing to you but wasn't nurtured,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get into those nuances of nature and nurture in that way.
Yeah. And so what when you talk about the predisposition versus kind of your genetics versus the environment, what role, like what's the difference between the predisposition and the genetics? Is the predisposition, like how would you even differentiate between those two? Does that make sense? It's a weird question because it's like if there's this kind of archetypal predisposition based on where you're born, or is your genetics more like your physical makeup and the predisposition, like the astrological energy is more of a different kind of effect on the body? Or is that just nonsense?
I think it's all kind of one and the same. If I'm being honest, it's like from my point of view, your DNA is a lot of the karma or the genetics, like the things that are in your lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're born with in your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And I see so many of those similar karmic imprints in your energetic body that I'm looking at, right? So it's one and the same in that I can look at a chart and think and say, maybe you're prone to these health issues, or that your body is like, looking at someone's rising sign tells me a lot about their physical disposition.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that would be the answer, is they're kind of just two sides of the same coin.
Got you. Okay. So what are some ways that you've seen that people use astrology really positive, like in some of your coaching and stuff like that? Like how can you help us kind of blueprint out a way to use this as a factor in just day-to-day life, like in a healthy, balanced way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest gift of astrology is the gift of you. Like you get to see, to me, it's the biggest mirror of, oh, wow, that's who I actually am. And that you get to then take full sovereignty and responsibility of yourself, which then gives you free will, right? And free choice of like, oh, that's my tendency, or that's what I do. Do I want to choose that? So the more that you learn about all the different planetary aspects of your chart, and someone can help you navigate that, right? And like learn those pieces of you and how they all interact, just the more free will comes into play. Like in my own, and I say that from my own personal experience too, of astrology is the biggest tool that I've had that helps me come home to me, like the tool that helps me understand me,
Mm-hmm.
and how those pieces are always playing together, and how certain pieces were really pressed upon with my family of origin, and what that means in my whole journey here in this reincarnation. And yeah, I think, again, simply put, it's like it just brings you back to who am I? And then as far as like putting it into the daily practice, even just knowing your elements and knowing what you're comfortable with. Like if you're really fiery, you may really need to cultivate some water, right? Or if you're really earthy, you may need to cultivate some fire. Like knowing where you need to balance those elements, because that's essentially what we're all made of, right? Is those four elements. And just to have simple tools that balance those out in your daily life. So that could be okay, you're low in water, you need to learn how to meditate and be still and do things that are more embodying that element. Okay, you're low in fire, you need to start dancing, moving your energy, talking to people, getting yourself uncomfortable, right? Like, so helping people cultivate those simple practices that can make such a difference to find that balance of all four pieces.
When you find that you're kind of predisposed to one element, that sounds like it's kind of a guideline of how to, because I feel like maybe the goal, meaning like to find a homeostatic place, is more to try to find balance within the four elements. Is that what you do with coaching people, is teach them to find the middle ground?
Absolutely. That's one of my first first sessions working with someone, is understanding their elemental distribution and how that shows up in their life, for sure.
Water, huh? Need a little more water. That's wild. Can you think of a time, and if you can't, that's fine, but can you think of a time, because it sounds like what you're talking about is you can use this as a blueprint to really raise a lot of awareness of your innate feelings, innate behaviors, innate tendencies. Can you think of a time that you personally were able to use this map in a way that helped you be like, okay, so I'm more like I'm being kind of activated in this way. So let me use that tendency to see that I need to cultivate some more of another element so that I can find balance.
Absolutely. So when I started this work, my missing element was water. And
water is what?
Water is like doing nothing on purpose, letting you know, like surrendering to knowing that your intuition can guide you, that we don't have to always do something. We can just be, right? It's
so when you say you were missing water, what was the behavior? What was the mindset there?
I never sat still. I didn't cry. I wasn't vulnerable emotionally. I couldn't just like meditation. I still struggle with meditation, like things that I really have to be still and nonverbal. That's really hard for me.
So what's happening when you try to meditate or when you're trying just to be still? Is it just rumination? Is it you feel like you should be doing something else? Is it like trying to nuts and bolts get things done?
It's like ants in my pants. Like can't sit down I know from my chart that my nervous system is really high. It runs really high. And so I don't like to get to the core of it. I never really learned how to self-soothe. And so when I was needing to soothe and needing to be in water, I would ramp up my energy more, ramp up my nervous system because that's what felt comfortable to me. So I had no water to like, I had no relationship with water to know what it meant to soothe and just to be, and to be in that stillness and trust.
So what did that look like to try to cultivate water?
Therapy. Motherhood was like a huge initiation into water.
Yeah.
And you have to do nothing when you want them to emotionally process and teach them about their own emotions. Yeah, that's the biggest initiation I've had. Other like clients that I have that need to ramp up some water or get in touch with their water, it can be as simple as a reminder on their phone every couple hours to sit still in a room by themselves and take a couple breaths and actually feel into their body. Am I feeling something? Do I have an emotion here that I'm just on overdrive ignoring? Like just getting in touch with the underlying feeling, the undercurrent of everything going on.
Okay. So if we shifted over to anxiety, because most of our listeners and clientele suffer from panic attacks or high anxiety, what realm of element is that typically in, and what's a way to start using, astrology to raise that awareness and then start to cultivate some of a different element or some more peace or some quiet?
I think the two elements that would be the biggest culprits would be air and water. So air is that your thoughts are just insatiable they never stop. You get on mind loops. You can't settle down or like get your thoughts out to really feel grounded, right? Like if you think about the air it's not on the ground. It's all the way around us, but it's like everywhere, scattered, right? And then water is when you don't realize how much you're picking up the energy of everything and everyone around you. Because water, right, picks up all the energy and all the things not said in the room. And that is heavy. And so you become like this psychic sponge that never gets wrung out. And that feels like, how can I escape this in my body? So in either of those circumstances, it's finding ways to make that element healthier. And that could be by, in air, that could be a journaling practice. That could be talk therapy. That could be something that helps them systemize their thoughts that feel so scattered and feel so overwhelming. And then with water, it could be therapy, or it could be something that helps you in that water. Or it could be initiating some fire where you're initiating boundaries and you're learning how to say no to people. You're learning how to move your energy because it's all getting so stuck, and you're learning how to get other people's energy off of you, right?
Sure. And when you talk about earth, is earth kind of the main grounding of the four elements? How do you cultivate some earth besides digging a hole in the backyard?
Well, you can literally work with the earth, right?
Yeah.
If you want to work with crystals, or you want to do some gardening, or you
Sure.
want to do anything like that. It's also systemizing your world or having routine. There are people out there that have no idea how to do routine or no idea how to do their finances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Finance is under the realm of birth.
Mm-hmm.
So putting in practices that help them put structure into their world. And because that isn't always something that people can cultivate by themselves or even have awareness that that's like a missing piece. They're just like, I don't know. I just scattered. This is my life. Like, this is how I live, right? It could be as simple as organizing your house or cleaning out your car, and how much space you feel and ease when those things are in place and there's more practicality around you.
So when you get into like the nitty gritty with coaching a client, when you're saying like, hey, so you're very, with the anxiety, you're very air oriented or very much in too much water. What's your process of helping them cultivate some of those other elements? How do you use, like, what's the kind of astrology piece versus versus like a traditional talk therapy? Like, is the astrology more of like the awareness of that archetype or their tendencies? What would you say is kind of the main difference between like a coaching you do and a traditional therapy?
Yeah. In coaching a client, we initially just have a dialogue about what I see in their chart.
Mm-hmm.
And there are three biggest components of your chart: your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. And those are kind of the three main pillars of your expression, your personality, your chart. So we go into those, and then we start to get more into the nuances. And I just can feel out and through dialogue and questions of what is cultivated and what's heavy, where they get stuck, where the ease and where's the conflict within the chart, and helping them even recognize certain gifts or abilities that they have that they underplay or aren't cultivated, or just getting into how each of those archetypal elements, like pieces of their chart, are expressed in their own life, right? And then getting into, okay, this element feels like it's missing, or it feels like you don't have a relationship with this element, or maybe this element's very strong but it's unhealthy in that it's paralyzing you, or it's making things harder even though it's something that comes with ease, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. What have you seen are ways that astrology can be used poorly, or is there some sort of, have you seen a community that uses it in an unhealthy way or an imbalanced way? Have there been, what ways can people use it poorly or over-identify with it or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I think like anything spiritual, it can become a scapegoat or like a way to bypass of like, oh, that's just that part of me and that's who I am. When really it's the point of astrology for me, the intention behind it is to know that part of you and to take full on responsibility of it, and not say like, like I have a lot of Leo in my chart. That doesn't give me the right to just be dramatic and blow shit up just
Right.
because that's me, right?
Yeah.
That's like, I know this tendency about me. What am I going to do to honor it and express it in a healthy and non-damaging way, right? So I think it can definitely become a scapegoat, or can become a way to just bypass and victimize yourself for what your blueprint says about you and how you embody that.
Almost like a diagnosis. Like, I was diagnosed bipolar. Hey, I'm bipolar. This is what it is, instead of putting in the effort to focus on it.
Exactly.
Well, is there a specific sign that you tend to get the most clients? Like, do you see the most anxiety in, like you talked about, air and water? Is there a specific sign that you tend to see the most clientele come through for you?
As far as anxiety, I would definitely say anyone that's a Virgo or a Gemini, there's a lot of anxiety there.
Wow.
And anxiety / depression is the water signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, because they're just little energetic sponges all the time.
Shit. It's true. I'm a Pisces. Yeah. God darn it.
Yeah. And I also would say that to have like the polarity, I have a client that is bipolar, and her chart has a lot of water and fire polarity. So she has highs and lows, right? And it's this, you can really see it in the chart. So giving her that context and understanding some outlet points to when those parts of her are expressed, she knows it. And it's not that it's like, oh, I'm bipolar and I can't do anything about it. It's like, I know these parts of me and I have tools that empower me
Mm.
to understand these archetypes that live within me.
Wow. Wow. So what kind of stuff should we consider if we were wanting to get into getting our chart, like finding a reputable source for astrology? Are there some certain characteristics to find good resources besides, of course, you? Is there a good place to start, or resources you'd recommend, or certain characteristics of good resources that you'd recommend?
Yes, I'd say honestly, as an astrologer, I'm one of those astrologers that hasn't studied with a ton of people. It was something that I took. Deborah Silverman is my biggest mentor, and I took her 3-level school. And then the rest of it just kind of has been like field research for me of seeing how I see it in other people, how I see it in my clients, how I see it in every day, right? These archetypes
Mm-hmm.
are always popping up. So it's kind of my own recognition, pattern recognition, and applying it to my own life. And then with my kids and my partner and the people that I'm always interfacing with. But um other resources, I mean, there are plenty of books out there, and I love, like, Stephen Forrest has a great book. I think it's called The Inner Sky is a great book that I've read. Um, I think any source that is empowering, right, is and there's a lot of astrology out there that can be kind of dark or be like, if this is a signature piece that there's gonna be death. Or I had a client once that said, I got my chart read online and it said my my sister was gonna die, or just crazy stuff of like that feels what's the word? Not dark, but what's that word that's like um help me.
I don't know what the word is. If I knew, I could. That's okay. Come circle back to it. But so it sounds like what you're saying is there specific things people should look out for, like if it's too like image based, if it feels like it's very flashy, or certain things that you see that you would discount you. I'm interested in that, and then I'm also interested what attracted you to Deb Silverman. What made you choose her?
Yeah. So I'd say anything that's black and white that isn't open for interpretation, right?
Okay,
That's like, this means this in your chart, and that's the only way, because that's very limiting.
got you.
That's the biggest red flag.
And just
In it,
false.
right.
Okay.
And yes, I picked Deborah Silverman. I heard her randomly on a podcast. And I loved her style because it was about applying it, right? It wasn't just this woo woo esoteric thing that was like, we're all made of stardust and read this map, right? It was like, what can we actually do with this? And she has a background in psychology, and everything in her school is so um, basic, like the very fundamental, right? Rudimentary, in that it's about the elements and it's about the archetypes. And yes, you can get into so many nuances and different technical things in the chart, but how can we really ground it and apply it and give people context to empowerment? And that's why I chose her.
So you it was a little bit just on the fact that she was very grounded with it, very applicable, and very not. We're Are we all stardust?
So astrology suggests, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. How have you noticed? How do you use astrology as a mother of two? In what ways do you apply it? I can remember a conversation we had a long time ago where you said it was cool. I think it was with your first, where you was like, it was cool to see that her chart read, she'd be very sensory, so she's very into like blankets and stuff. How do you use astrology as a parent and in dealing with your kids?
Yeah. I think that goes back to the nature and nurture conversation too. Their natal chart is my biggest parenting tool of how to nurture them,
Mm-hmm.
because I know who they are on their soul level or their core and what they're here to learn. So I want to just facilitate that. And it takes to me, it's the best way to stop projecting onto your kid what you think they should be, or that they should be an extension of you. You can see like, this is my roadmap and this is yours. How do they conflict? How do they support each other? And so it's just such a gold mine of how to parent them to empower them and give them their freedom and their wholeness. And that to me is the only parenting tool I really need, because if I just know like these are their innate things that they want to experience or that they're built for, that's all I need to do. And so to give more like application to that, it would be like I've told you about Stella, my first. She is very sensory and she loves to have things. Like she wants to take her whole bedroom into her crib when she goes to bed. And I, as a neat and tidy parent, I could be like, no, you can't take all of your stuffed animals with you today. And she hates that. She's a Taurus moon. She wants everything with her. She wants her security, and she even wants her food in her bed. And that's just who she is. That's how she's built. So even just knowing that is such a permission slip to honor who she is and not put my own rule book on her. Like, does it really matter if she does that? Or is that just me thinking that she should be a certain way?
Can this be useful in conflicts with family as adults or conflicts with partners? And in what way can you navigate the balance of, kind of your innate needs with the innate tendencies of the other person? Is it just in like an understanding way, or is there a way to be clever or use these tools to just help mitigate, some of the conflict that you might have? It's a big question.
Yeah. So I'll bring in my partnership in this question, in that we have in the piece that I look at in our charts of like what our life lesson is, or the lesson that we're here to, that's going to repeat itself over and over. The archetype you're really learning to embody and embrace, and that's like part of your truest purpose in this lifetime. Our pieces in our charts clash in that way, that they're literally in a square, which means like conflict. So he's really here to do internal work, figure out the pain, sit in it, be like really emotional. And my Scorpio, and my life lesson is in Aquarius, which is asking me to look at the big picture, detach lovingly from the emotional part of it, and see how all of it is just love, and like let myself be in that space. So those things don't really go together.
Yeah, they don't sound great.
Right? Like he wants to do the emotional deep shit, and I'm here to learn like how can we alchemize that and let go of it and like be really more above it, like observe it rather than feel it. Right? So even just knowing that about each other makes such a difference, because when he gets in that space, I'm like, okay, you're here to learn that, and I don't have to engage with you. I can support you through it, but like I don't necessarily have to do the same thing. And that is again such a permission or a freedom for us to know that about each other, and to know where we can lovingly accept that about each other without trying to change it.
Wow. This is the big question that I want to do this interview about. How do we use astrology to have better sex? Is there a sex chart?
Is there a sex chart?
Yeah, is there a chart? What moon is in what Pisces with Aquarius where we have better sex?
Well, the sign that embodies sex the most is Scorpio.
Okay.
But I think my answer to this question is that you're going to have better sex the more that you are intimate and vulnerable with yourself. So any practice of astrology can help you get to that vulnerable level with yourself, so that you can show up and have better intimacy with someone else. But how can you show up in a sexual encounter if you don't even know you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's not, it's not such a sexy answer, but I get it. But it's true across the board, of course.
Because to me, like enhancing sex usually means you want more connection, you want more intimacy, you want things to be more outside the box or racy, or whatever you fantasize about. But unless you're comfortable enough to go there with even yourself, how are you going to like do it with a partner? So that's all things Scorpio, as far as doing that deep work and finding that intimacy and trust within yourself, so you can do it in partnership. But that's my answer. Anything in astrology can get you to better sex.
Got you. So before we give out all your socials and stuff, we have a big population of people suffering from panic attacks, suffering from high anxiety, that go through depression. I know they're not really much in the same. What you were talking about was cultivating more earth element, cultivating more water element. Can you just review some of these general practices that tend to be more grounding for people who are stuck in that air element, stuck more in that water element, to help them either clear the element, like you said, or to help ground them? What are some of the main practices you'd say for somebody with panic attacks and anxiety? Just to kind of review.
I would say earth, in that you're grounded and you can feel the chair under you. You can feel the simplicity of, oh, I see that red wall in front of me, or I see, the grounding of the simplicity and coming back to that. You're in your body and you are safe and supported by the earth, right? And then maybe adding in routine of like, this is how I feel good every morning. If it's having a glass of water or doing a breathing exercise, whatever routine really makes you feel grounded and in your body and in your space, right? And secure. And then other, I would say, is fire, in that you need to move your energy. You need to get moving and do something that either makes you happy, brings joy and passion into your life, or do something physical as far as running, dancing, swimming, something that makes you sweat, an exercise class, so that you're moving that actual inner chi that you have. And that helps you define yourself, like understand that you have edges, or you're a separate being from everyone else that you're feeling when you're in all that water element.
And in that water element, with kind of absorbing the feeling, how do you recommend you do that? Like, what are some practices to stop taking in everything, to stop kind of have everything floating through you and everything? What are some just kind of nuts and bolts practices that you might recommend to clients or that you've used yourself?
There's one that's more woo-woo, of like actually energetically protecting yourself, right? Like, you can do visualizations of you having your own energy pulled in, so that you're not, your aura or everything isn't out and just pulling in everything around you. And then there's a physical practice of setting boundaries, of learning what is a yes and what's a no for you. When you're hitting an overload, like you're flooded with too much information from someone, or an experience has become too much for you emotionally, that you can actually extract yourself from it. So helping people understand their boundaries and helping them find ways to voice those to people and to physically make those boundaries.
Wow. So let's just do a quick review here. So it sounds like there's a huge amount of awareness to be gained from knowing kind of your prenatal chart, these archetypal or these predisposed tendencies that you might have, as well as with a partner, with a child, with friends, or anybody you might have a conflict with. Look out for anything that's too black or white, is what you said. Any astrology resource that's very black or white, very distinct, that should be open to interpretation. It should be open to analysis. What else? Is there anything else you want to tell people about astrology to destigmatize it? Anything you want them to know, to like a pitch for them to start maybe using this more and more?
I think it's just such a self-study, in that I think any tools that anyone is looking for to get to enlightenment or consciousness, or anything that they're looking for, like more understanding or awareness. The thing I love about astrology is that it really puts the ball in your court, and that you're just learning about you. Like, learning about your natal chart is so empowering, and understanding you and giving you that free will. So it's just kind of like a never-ending study of self. And that, to me, is my most powerful tool in coming home to myself, and then honoring everyone around me for their, like, celebrating them for their unique self and who they are and their self-sovereignty.
So with that awareness, being able to cultivate you and your innate path, and then understanding and helping others cultivate their innate path.
Right. And celebrating all of it at the same time, right? Is that you do you and I do me, and how do we then intertwine?
Yeah, so Kerry, where can people find you online, and what sort of services do you offer?
So my biggest social media platform is on Instagram, which is mother with 2_star. And then my website is motherstar.me. I'm really revamping the way I work with clients, and that I love doing coaching sessions and really working with people for a longer period of time. So 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I love to work with families. So really getting into the parent aspects and then their relationship and then their relationship with the kids. That is really the stuff I really love to get into. And I'm going to offer a Saturn return class in January. So anyone with their Saturn in Aquarius, it'll be a container to help people navigate that time and how to, I guess, navigate and not feel alone in a time that's very vulnerable and challenging.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. So all this put together, raising awareness, knowing kind of your innate tendencies, and then being able to navigate that in addition to the close people around you, to their tendencies, to help cultivate one another and be individuals. Absolutely beautiful, unbelievable. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. Check out her social media, check out her website, and I love it. Thank you so much for making this digestible to a knucklehead like me. And thank you guys so much. And thank you guys so much to those of you checking this out. And like always, like we always say, no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been struggling or how intense it is, you're never stuck. You might just need some support from someone like Kerry. So good mental health to you all. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, we're recording. Okay, so we're back because there's one thing that Kerry started talking about that was really interesting, and it was that you were talking about people a lot of times with astrology. I think this is what turned me off about it to begin with, is they would go have a reading and it was very fatalistic, as in like it was very future, like rock, concrete, solid. This is what's going to happen in your future. What's your experience with that? Because you were just saying that that's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it's black and white, that it's like, this is your roadmap and there's no choice. To me, astrology is, this is you and the expression of you. How do you choose to use it? It's such a different way of than someone telling you your own fate or telling you your own destiny based on the stars and the planets.
Why would, I mean, beyond just a practice of trying to get people back and like an egotistical astrological practice of a practitioner, what would be the intention? Is that more like they see, hey, this is the road you're going down, so this is what's going to happen? Because at this point, I feel like you're seeing a psychic instead of an astrologer.
Yeah, and I think that that would be something to look out for too in looking for an astrologer, in that some people use a lot more predictions or use it as a tool of, this is how I see your life unfolding, rather than like, how is this real time playing out for you? And how can you then create your future? Not that I'm like reading your future. Does that make sense?
Of course. So for you, it's more like, hey, this is what's going on. Do you ever do future predicting or say, hey, this seems like this is the road you're going down? As far as like specifics? That's what I said.
I will give seasons or things that, like, and what I mean by that is you have transits. So the planets that are happening now, the planets that are moving around us now, are affecting your natal chart. Your like stagnant, constant blueprint that you have, which is the moment you were born, is being affected by what's happening now. Mm-hmm. So I can see that like, oh, this is going to be a really challenging time for you, right? We all know Saturn return. That is such a common thing that happens. That's kind of more mainstream that people know about. And so, then I'm in this season that's challenging me and asking me to get into alignment, versus maybe there's another cycle that you go through that's really lucky, like when you're being influenced by Jupiter. So it can be used as a way of like, yes, you have more energetic backing that's easy or difficult, but never would I say like, this is the time you should get pregnant, or this is the time that you're gonna, I don't like to do that kind of prediction, because I think then it's so much then is predetermined or decided upon because someone gave you that information.
Can you try to explain what you just said? But no, like so when you say, hey, you're going to go through a really tough time because energetically you're not being supported, or energetically you're being pushed to be in alignment, can you try to nuts and bolts describe what's going on? Like like I understand it's like the specificity of so let's take me for example, my specific chart, my specific moment, and then something's gonna be my transits or whatever the hell you just said, something's gonna be putting forward an energy for me that's gonna be trying to force me into alignment.
Yeah. Okay. So I was speaking about Saturn return, which is between the age of 28 and 30. And that's when the planet of Saturn comes back to where it was the moment you were born.
Okay.
Okay. So it takes that long for Saturn to come back around the wheel to get to where it was. So that is a time, the planet of Saturn in the long short is that the planet of Saturn is asking us, are we in true alignment with our integrity, with our highest purpose, with what we're here to learn about? Okay. So when it's coming back around, it's kind of like this time of review. Are you in alignment? Is this relationship right for you? Is this job for you? Where are you out of alignment? So if you're in, like, let's say a job that is totally out of alignment with you, or you're married to someone that you hate, right? And you know it, but you haven't done anything about it. A Saturn return may come in and just pummel you. Like, it's very challenging because all these things are coming to light, and there's like this kind of reality, like dose of reality. And it feels really restrictive, and it feels really like tense and challenging. Whereas if you're in alignment and you're in the job that feels really fulfilling, and you're doing the things that feel really in a true integrity to who you are, that time might be a time where you manifest a lot of shit, where you really get into more alignment and you have that energy pushing you even farther into like success.
So the return from where the planet Saturn was when you were born, that's just like a physical energy that affects you in that way.
Right.
Okay.
Like you're embodying that. You're embodying that energy, right? So like my Saturn is in Aquarius, and Saturn is going to move into Aquarius again in December, and we'll be there for 2 years. So I'll be in my Saturn return.
Ooh, you're in trouble, buddy. You're in trouble, or you're going to be rich, right?
So yeah, so
that's so great.
It's a time to know, like, this could be challenging. This is a time that it's really, Saturn's also kind of a timekeeper. It's like we're actually in a physical world. Are you making time count? Like, you have to grow up in a way. It's an energy that really asks us to, again, like, what is your integrity? What do you stand for? Are you just fucking around? Sorry, can I say that F word?
It's fine.
Are you just like killing time, or are you using it to really build something like a legacy that you're leaving? So that could be like, if you're just like bullshitting life, that's not going to be an easy time for you. That energy is going to feel restrictive and confronting and scary. But if you're in alignment, or you have someone that's helping you, facilitating you through that, or you have some awareness of things that you need to change in your life, it could really push you along on that path and help open that up for you.
Wow. All right. Is there a place that people can see the definition of like what the planets and the moons and the move, like there's got to be like a book that just or a resource that just is the blueprint for everything, like the universal blueprint? Is that a real thing, or did I just make that up?
I have a book like that that's like really thick.
Is it really? Yeah.
I'm like the worst astrologer because I don't even know who wrote it. It's like a really old book that I love, but I can get that for you and put it in the show notes if you'd like.
I'm good. Look for the big book. Not for me. No, send me the name. I'll put it in the notes. But man, that sounds extremely intimidating. Man, unbelievable. And you're not. I'm sure you're an amazing. Knowing you, I'm sure you do a fantastic job with everything. Okay, this was the hat on. We need to add that. Good mental health.